Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a hurricane outlook and discussion recorded on May 22nd, 2022, quote on 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to jump into today, including a potential tropical system that might be trying to brew out there in the southwestern Atlantic over the next several days. Is this really a threat to develop? Well, let's go ahead and answer that question. Taking a look across most of the United States today, it is actually very nice and quiet across most of the US, something that we haven't seen in quite a long while, actually. Right now, if we take a look at temperatures across the United States as of 11:30 this morning, most of the temperatures across the US are very seasonably mild and quite nice. 66 all the way up near Billings, Montana, 59 degrees in New York at this hour. 86 down there in the southern tip of Cuba, 88 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So certainly very nice and quiet conditions expected across most of the United States throughout the next several days, with the exception of the southeast being quite wet. So this is the tropical weather outlook issued this morning as of 8 a.m. from the National Hurricane Center. There is an area of disturbed weather that is located just away from the Bahamian Islands at this current point in time, generally moving towards the north and northeast very slowly at this point. The National Hurricane Center gives this area a 10% chance of development within the next 7 days. Of course, now this is now 7 days instead of 5 days. The 7-day outlook is now operational. So again, 10% within the next 7 days, not a very high likelihood to develop, but could pose a little bit of a heavy rain threat to portions of Bermuda over the next several days, as this tries to get going, but is unlikely to do so. So taking a look here at the storm alert, this is a non-tropical area of low pressure as of 11 a.m. this morning. Winds sustained 15 miles per hour with gusts up to 30 miles per hour in certain locations, especially within convective bands. The movement is to the north-northeast at 3 miles per hour, currently centered around 24.8 degrees north and 78.3 degrees west. This is a very low impact risk, a level 1 out of 10 impact risk, meaning that the impact to life and property is very low, and gusty winds and heavy rainfall are the main concerns with this system as it drifts slowly towards the north-northeast during the next couple of days. Here is our current system on the visible satellite imagery. We notice this area of broad spin down here to the north of the Bahamian Islands at this current point. And this is slowly drifting away from the island chain and away from the rest of the islands to the south and the southeast U.S. coast. And again, this is producing a broad area of disorganized shower and thunderstorm activity. You can actually see there is very little in the way of convection around this area this morning. And we stretch this out to a broader satellite loop here. We notice how, again, most convection is well to the north associated with a cold front that is moving across the area today, and so this really doesn't have any shot at developing. And actually, one more thing that we can kind of take a look at here is the mid-level water vapor imagery, and we notice how there's actually a tongue of dry air being adjusted to the north of this system today, and you can kind of see right where the MSLP contours, the sea level pressure contours indicate that area of low pressure out here. And notice how there's this dry air in the center of this circulation, indicating that this is not a very well organized system. Upper level winds are expected to increase throughout the remainder of the system's lifetime, and development chances are therefore dwindling as we speak. Looking at the GFS precipitable water forecast overlaid with the mean sea level pressure forecast off of the GFS, this is our current system that we are monitoring out here, now moving away from the Bahamian Islands at this point. And we notice that the kind of the darker colors here, these darker reds and pinks here, this indicates that we are getting into the higher precipitable water amounts. This basically indicates more moisture in the atmosphere to work with. We'll move this forward throughout the next several days, and we notice that on the GFS, we notice that this system continues to pull off generally towards the north here and north-northeast. This is the island of Bermuda right here. We notice that it is firmly entrenched within this fetch of deeper moisture being pulled around this very broad area of low pressure. So for Bermuda, there is an increasing risk of thunderstorms and precipitation over the next several days, potential for some heavy rainfall, gusty winds, nothing too significant at all. So certainly Nothing to be scared about, nothing to be overly cautious about, but just monitor the forecast for this local area as increased precipitation and wind will occur with this area of low pressure as it passes by. This eventually gets caught up in this cold front here and weakens. You notice that the moisture plume begins to stretch far to the north. Our area of low pressure does subside. Then we turn our attention back towards the southeast coast as we move on to about days 5, 6, and 7 and beyond. Another area of low pressure, according to the GFS, might try to develop off the Florida coast here and off the southeast U.S. coast. And by the time we get into later into the week and into the weekend and going closer to Memorial Day, this is on May 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we notice that there's an area of low pressure just off the Carolina coasts here, generally moving closer towards the North Carolina coast here in the Outer Banks. So this will be something to monitor. It doesn't look like a tropical system by any means, but definitely could have some increased moisture for the Memorial Day weekend and into Memorial Day itself with this system that does get ejected off towards the north and east. So a lot to watch here over the next several days. Not a washout by any stretch of the imagination. Could be some gusty winds in here, definitely an area of low pressure, so maybe some gustier winds, heavier rainfall, potential for some isolated coastal flooding as well. We'll have to monitor the forecast very carefully on this system. Looking here at the GFS wind plot, this is up at about 300 millibars. We notice that right now across our system, the environment is pretty much just hostile. There's strong upper level winds cutting across this entire region, and that's really going to limit any significant development over the next several days. We'll roll this forward. You notice that the environmental conditions don't really change much. Dry air, strong upper level winds preventing development of this system currently exiting away from the Bahamian Islands. And then as we progress towards the latter half of the period, towards that other system that we'll be watching, this also looks like it will have to deal with some pretty strong upper level winds. You can see only a pocket where some favorability exists in the southwestern Atlantic before this area becomes run over by a upper level low that is sitting out across the southeast U.S. at this point towards the end of the forecast period on May 27th, according to the GFS. Strong upper level winds at this point will be across this area, very much so limiting any significant and appreciable tropical cyclone formation. There is some divergence aloft here, though. You can kind of see the wind barbs spreading out around this upper level low, and so that might allow for thunderstorms to actually develop across this area, but generally speaking, any appreciable tropical cyclone formation is not anticipated at this time. So all in all, it is the hurricane season actually in the eastern Pacific Basin. The EastPac hurricane season started on May 15th of this year. It is now May 22nd as we're recording this video. We notice the intertropical convergence zone out here is pretty lit up, especially towards the Nino 1-2 area, which is just off the coast of Peru and South America, where water temperatures are substantially above the long-term average at this point. And we notice that as such, we have a lot of rising motion and thunderstorms over this region, looking here at the mid-level water vapor imagery. So a lot of convection, a lot of showers and thunderstorms ongoing across this region right now. An actual area of smaller disturbance out here along the intertropical convergence zone, several hundred or several thousand miles away from the Nino 1-2 area. Elsewhere, really across the eastern Pacific and into the central Pacific, it is pretty quiet across the area, so no significant tropical cyclone formation is expected to occur in the eastern Pacific for the next while. So with that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. God bless to everyone out there. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you guys again some more over the next several days.